Jen's couple of announcements before we get started. We'll have our lunch break right after this session, and then Maggie and Bruce will be back to present after that. Like I said earlier this morning, we'll wrap that one, our third and fourth sessions, right into each other. So just kind of want to prepare you for that. Bring some extra food if you want to come back and eat. And it's always good. We want to keep you fed, keep you happy, and go from there. So Joe Frontier is back for his last session today in the video analysis. And if we get to the end of this and you have other questions that don't even pertain to this, feel free, open it up. We want you to leave here with all the information that you need. So turn it over to Joe Frontier again.
I know yesterday and this last session I talked a lot and all the way to the end, so I really want to leave space for more questions during this session. So I'm going to try to shut my yapper earlier on. And so if it's really like rotational shot, glide shot, discus questions, training questions, you can just ask me about kind of like program, how do I practice, structure, plan, anything like that. We can get into it today. If you're on the way home and you want to listen to podcasts, go for it. And then Throrex people, thanks for those of you who've asked questions about that. Cool. I'm a big person on quotes, and I'm shocked that I went 3 presentations and I didn't have really any quotes until then. Like our workout book is printed, and I have everybody write everything down when we're in the weight room. We call it the Bible. Kids started that, and then I was like, all right, I guess we're going to have the Bible. But every week a workout has a different quote in there. Sometimes it pertains where we're at in the season. But I'm fond of quotes. I think when I think about looking at my kids' video, I was really early on kind of addicted to looking at video. And I have had every version of like video tool like over the last 24 years. Thankfully, I like started coaching like after like this thing, like, you know, they've got smaller since then, thankfully. But I think we were talking about the, like, was it a flip thing where you like plug the camera with a little USB? Anybody have one of those for a little while? Those were cool. And you know, now between iPads and cell phones, it's just so much easier. But I literally had like mini DV on a tripod with this little camcorder and was recording stuff. And it helped me see things that certainly I got good at seeing in real time, but also expose things that maybe I wasn't looking at or didn't notice. And I think the other thing is we get stuck on things and we miss maybe the bigger picture of things or what the root cause of problem sourcing for kids who are growing. In real time, let's be honest, I don't think we really see more than 1 or 2 things. And if we can see more than 1 or 2 things in a throw, we're probably not seeing it very accurately or real, or really in like the context. And usually, I miss those things at practice because if we're focused on a single cue, I'm looking at that thing really intently, and then I'm maybe missing something else. So I can step back at the end of practice or after my kids go to bed, and I can obsessively look at video for like an hour or 2, or but it really has helped me see the big picture, not get fixated on that one thing, source kind of causes of the bigger problems, and then also video, we can look at side-by-side stuff. Why is this kid all of a sudden not throwing very far, and they were throwing very far? I've managed to coach them down, right? Or we get stuck in a plateau, or you know, what's different about what you were doing at the end of last year versus this year at the beginning? Inevitably, it takes some time to maybe on-ramp to where we were. Sometimes kids pick it right up, or at least their distance does, but then why? Did something change? It should be stronger. Why are we just throwing the same distance as last year? So all those things I think we can do side by side sometimes. So this question is big, right? Should we be looking just for things that are going wrong, right? We can get fixated on, hey, your arm still sucks. I was just talking with someone who asked me a question about left arm, and you know, yeah, I think fixing the path of something, fixing this, Is there a point where we can't get kids to fix that problem as well as we would like, just how they do things? Are there other levers I could pull to get a bigger return on me saying something other than turn your right foot more, turn your right foot more, turn your right foot more, turn your right, try turning your right foot, try turning your right knee, turn your right hip more, all that shit that we do as coaches, we get kind of stuck in these tracks. I'm sure the kids really appreciate hearing the same thing over and over again. But not only that, but it's like, all right, Corinne Franz, who we saw a video of yesterday, she won't get mad at me because she's heard me say this. She kind of walks like a duck, like her feet kind of point out, and she kind of walks like this. And we were really fixated sophomore year trying to get her to turn the right foot in the discus. And she was a fixed feet thrower. And at some point, it's like, I think you could be a good non-reverse thrower, but I need this hip, instead of you throwing across this open right side, I need somehow to get this hip through. And so we started reversing. And instead of turning the right hip on the ground, which would have created more power, our solution was we've got to get that hip with the discus still in your hand to start crossing the ring a little bit, pushing to the left side a little bit. And she could do it in the air because her feet didn't matter that they were still pointed out like a duck. She could rotate her hips, which were probably more important than the right foot turning the whole time. But, you know, that was 12 years ago, and look how much smarter I am now, right? So we find these things sometimes that are doing, she's doing so many other things well. Should we really just be stuck on this one thing? I think we get stuck in those things, okay? So the other part or answer to this question, I think, is what do your kids need from you? Your younger kids, and Maggie and I had a really good conversation yesterday about the differences between Dave Dumble and Brian Blutrick, which are vast. But early in her college career, Dave is a very much of a positive, that was great, and Maggie would be like, yeah, sometimes you would tell me it was great when it wasn't that great. But then also Maggie said, I probably needed to hear that. And who knows, maybe Dave would have gotten much more technical, maybe practical, probably not that much, but certainly he's a gifted technical coach too. He's had incredible success. Blutrick, very cut and dry. Sometimes at kids' training age, they need to hear the positive things so that they come back to practice the next day, right? And so don't always beat them. I think there are also athletes, they do not want it sugar-coated. They want to know what they need to fix. And you're going to have to go with feel on that. You've got to learn how to coach your kids differently. I think the number one mistake would be, thinking that we have a system and the kids need to morph to ours. Let's be honest, no kid in this era has been set up to respond to that anymore. They've been a little bit more coddled than kids that I was coaching 25 years ago. So we're going to have to do some morphing to them. I don't mean lower your standards. I just think we're going to need to meet kids where they are more often than not to get the response that we're hoping for. And so that's important. And I also think that it changes depending on the time of year. Your kids need different things at different times of the year in terms of how much positive feedback we give them and how much patting on the back we give them, or how much cracking the whip we do. So I shoot practice video not all the time. How many people shoot video at practice? Okay. I do not have a tripod at practice recording every throw. I have tons of throwers, and usually we have 3 discus circles throwing at the same time and 3 shot put circles throwing at the same time, with somewhere between 30 kids if half my kids are in the weight room, or 60 kids if we're working in 6 groups of 10. But usually we don't do that either, and we'll have kids at stations. That's my worst case scenario. God, I hate 60 kids all at the same time. Please try the long jump. Alright, try something else. Did you know that while I have 6 circles here, there are 9 lanes on the track? Why don't you go clog one of those up? No, never. Right, the bigger the group, the harder some of this is. And so I'm not recording 6 rings. Usually I'm recording 1 ring, and maybe kids rotate to my circle. So if I'm at the discus on a particular day, I'm at 1 ring, and I'm giving kids feedback at 1 ring. They're rotating through the other 2 rings to take their throws and hopefully incorporate the feedback that I'm giving them, also known as planning what their prom dress is going to look like, and then they come back and they do the same shit and say the thank you. You know the drill, right? I have some really focused athletes as well, but that's kind of what I do. Sometimes I'm shooting video of lots of throws. Sometimes I'm very much focused on my varsity kids. We're getting ready for a thing. We saw this problem, we talked about this problem. Where are we at? If I see it in real time, obviously I can give them feedback on it. I want to confirm it. Sometimes I'll hit record on my phone. I'll put my phone back in the pocket and don't think about it for the rest of practice. So you got to choose how much you want to do. The number of videos that I have is probably not healthy, right? We always probably shoot more video than we can actually take a look at. So pick and choose and save on memory if you can. The one thing that I do encourage my older kids, especially if they're into the technical part of their throw, if they're at that level where they're thinking technically about their throw, I'll have them record each other. And if they're a line of 6, you know, so-and-so's recording somebody, they hand their phone back to them. You know, that kid, you know, goes out and shags, they come back, they might look at their own video and slow it down, and they're looking at the cue we've been talking about, and they put their phone away, and then they take the next 5 throws, and maybe spot check again 5 throws later, something like that. I shoot almost every varsity throw at every meet. And again, I don't do analysis of all of it, but it certainly helps me go back and like, you know, oh shit, I was over the shot, I missed that throw, I go back and look at it. You know, we're getting into some sort of lull or plateau. You know, is that weight room related? Is there a technical thing that I missed? Being able to look at it, and then certainly when things go extremely well or extremely poorly, it becomes a great opportunity for us to kind of take a look and plan the next day of practice or plan the next week of practice. So Friday, Saturday invites. I'm usually looking at a lot of video on Sunday, plotting out what I want to do on Monday. Some kids I'll do a video analysis and I'll send them to them. Hey, take a look. Really did a great job coming out of the back today. Let's move on to that other cue we were talking about at practice tomorrow. Hey, take a look at this. It actually, I think it got worse, but you're throwing farther today. But we still didn't fix that, you know. Great wind in the discus. Let's not get it twisted that your technique did not get better, but the discus went 20 feet further because of the wind. So sometimes kids need to see that because they have this false belief that they are their number that they threw at the last meet. And sometimes the number doesn't equate. Like, hey, a lot of adrenaline, super pumped up competition, lots of energy, and they got music playing, and you went all out adrenaline, your 100% or whatever their 100% proficiency of technical ability went down to like 60, and they filled the rest with adrenaline, and it went far. Let's take a look at what's going on really. I always expect some sort of degrading of technical stuff on meet day, unfortunately. I think it's just a reality. Adrenaline fills it up, and that's when we see PRs. But we're also trying to raise the bar technically so that by the end of the season, whatever their 100%, you know, used to be their 50%. And so when they throw at 80% proficiency and they fill the gap with a lot of energy and juice, and they throw farther, it's because their platform, you know, to jump off of is higher. If that makes sense. Okay. So I knew I was going to talk about glide shot put today, so the analysis stuff is all discus, just in case someone wasn't here yesterday, you didn't hear me talk about shot and discus, even though we didn't get into rotational at all, but Maggie's covering that, so you're good. Let's watch some discus throws, ready? This is Ben Smith. He's a junior, he's a senior now, he's going to go to the University of Oregon next year. Threw 210 in the discus last year. This is Bryce Ruland. He also is a junior now, he's a senior. He's going to go to the University of Iowa next year. He threw 213. So this is number 1 in the country, number 2 in the country. I think Hayden was 3 in the country, is that right? Minnesota folks. They're both left-handed, so now let's never look at their video game.
Just say they throw with one hand.
So true, right? So I was like, oh, I'm guessing people want to talk about them or see them, and then I was like, no, we're going to spend time on them. Like, I was telling the guys last night, I have a lot of imposter syndrome, even though I've been doing this a long time, and I'm like obsessed about it, but I'm just like, because I can't demonstrate for a lick of anything lefty. I just like, am I holding them back? Like, what would they be throwing if they were right-handed? And I can demo, or if I was left-handed, or if I just had any mild proficiency in moving my body left from the left side. I have none of that. So anyway, let's look at some right-handers, and let's look at some mortals rather than guys who are just outliers, right? Here's some resources. I use Slow-Mo Mobile. Anybody else use this app? It's free. And it does a pretty good job. If you kick the video out of your phone and send it to someone, there's like a little slow-mo like logo, watermark in it, but who cares? You see in the video analysis anyway. This is Canovia. We'll take a look at that. It only works on laptops, but it's also free. Their logo and their interface looks like it was designed in like 1996. But it functions, and it is the perfect price of free. OnForm Mobile. Anyone have an OnForm subscription? This used to be Huddle Technique, and then OnForm bought them out. Huddle was free, and OnForm is not. I think it's $250, $49, I'm not sure. $250 a year. It has all sorts of great stuff. Like you tell who you're recording the video of, and you can set up an account. It automatically goes to that kid. You can talk into it, and then they'll see that. It'll put a skeleton on top of your, but I have OnForm, but I know a lot of people like the access to entry isn't something you want to spend money on. If you get to that point, it's also a great tool, but I put the free stuff on there because that's cool. Okay, here's my other big suggestion. Is before you get into the micro of like, look at this frame by frame, that's at least 4 frames your right toe did not work with. Look at the rhythm of the throw. I think it tells a lot about, this is how we see things in real time, and sometimes we miss the micro. But I think the pitfall of video analysis is you can get into the frame by frame by frame, which is so unrealistic for most of the athletes that we're talking about anyway, that we miss the, hey, that had great rhythm, that really had good tempo, or you paused on sweep and then kind of did this like restart pendulum, or you stopped in the middle. You miss some of that stuff if you don't just look at it kind of for the big picture of it. So please look at both and watch out for frame-by-frame coaching. I don't think it's a good replacement for us seeing the throw in real time and understanding what kids are doing. Okay, here, you are overwhelmed, right? Like, you can't see all this. And this is like the nice list, right? Like, you could get really into the micro of this. So you cannot see all this in real time. So this is the benefit of being able to slow things down and look at the back of the ring, middle of the ring, front of the ring. When I do video analysis, so I said this yesterday, I don't know, close to 2,000 video analysis last year for throwers all over the country. Some of them come from coaches who just like, I just want a second look, like what are you seeing? And so sometimes those conversations are much more interesting because then I get a description. The high school kids that send me video, it's like, this is my PR, and then it's a video, and I don't have any context. That's hard to do. But what I generally try to do is give them something that they're doing well, and usually that's something about the overall tempo of the throw, or I really like your finish, or you keep, you stay on your right foot so well. And then I'll try to give them some piece of feedback in the back, middle, and front that I think they could improve. And then the last thing that I do is, and here's where I would start. And I think that's the most important thing, and I hope that the title of the session is, how do you prioritize what to change? There's 50 things a kid does wrong. They can't change 50 things the next day of practice. And you can't keep 50 things. They'll get overwhelmed and they'll just still repeat all of those things. They just can't process that. So if you are prioritizing things, I would try to take the thing that is probably linked to the thing you perceive as holding them back the farthest, or 2, the thing at the back of the ring that is the most egregious. Right? Because so often something in the back of the ring will influence what happens in the middle of the front. And so you could spend lots of time trying to fix the middle, but it still persists because the thing that's happening that's causing the thing in the middle of the front happened in the back. So if you don't address in the back, it's never going to get better in the front. I think also things unrelated to that fix in the back often get a little bit cleaner when the back gets more efficient. And so if I see a big problem in the back, I'm almost always going to spend time there and prioritize the back of the ring. Okay, so this is Olivia Morgan, and she PR'd at the state meet her junior year, so this is 2 years ago. I think she went in like 115, 118, something like that. And this is her second throw. She goes 126.10 and like moves like just first or second place early in round 2. And then her next round throw blows the doors off of the place and falls out of the front of the ring, and it went like 145. Like it was like Longitsa Saga, kind of like, holy shit, where did that come from? At the most important meet of the year, super excited. But all the problems that caused the scratch in the first one were also here. We were like, that was so wonderful, you PR'd 126, 7-foot PR, that's so awesome. But it's not a very good technical throw, right? She was just juiced and ready in the back of the ring. When I look at this video, and you'll see a bunch of things, she barely saved that one, right? She uses like 6 feet of an 8-foot ring, and then uses the last 2 feet just to recover in. What do you see? Shout it out. What do you see? What's the biggest thing you saw in real time?
Which side of the back of the fence? Yeah, there's no separation.
Lots of issues. Let's see if I can, actually I didn't mean to do that. Okay, so, this is the last meet of the year. So this is in the next practice, and I don't know, this is almost like 4 minutes long, but, so here's, can you guys hear that? Can you guys hear that? No. Okay. So basically, I'm basically just like, I'm like, what a fantastic performance, big PR. I know you're thinking and pissed off at the thing. She like, her dad's like, great throw, honey, after the scratch. And she's like, cartwheels out of the front of the ring, and she's like, it was a foul, Dad. There's like 450 people around the thing, and she's yelling at her dad after this throw. So I'm just like talking about what some of the cues we had talked about going into this thing, and then this is me sending her like, this is the week after stage. And so I'm just like, hey, you need to not lean into the ring so much. We need to stay stacked on this left side instead of leaning in so far, because I want you to go out, grab some power outside of the ring and bring that power in instead of leaning in right away with the shoulder. Your head is leading, so I want you to slow the head down and see if we can stay stacked on the left side longer. Push the sweep out to the right over the left. Keep your heads neutral, is basically what I'm telling you. And I say all the things, I can get rid of the volume so I don't want to talk over it. But basically, I'm like, all of the things that happened after that was because this head is so fast in the beginning, the left shoulder leans, and then she loses separation because her head's like connected to her left arm. And I said, I know you felt like I fell out of the ring and I lost balance. It's like, the falling out of the ring started in the back. So we're gonna spend the summer, working on this. This is something I pretty typically do with all my non-graduating seniors, is send them a shot video analysis and a disc video analysis, and say, here would be my priorities. Sometimes it's specific, like this meet. Sometimes they don't make it to the state meet. You're just talking about, hey, here's a pretty typical throw from this past season. You pick one out. I know we talked about this, but I think, if you get a little bit stronger in the weight room, I'm doing the whole cell and like the long range plan, and I'm sending them this like 3 or 4 minute video. It's a time suck, but I think it's worth it. Questions?
What about the tapping at the beginning of the throw?
Tapping at the beginning of the throw,
Yeah.
like her little nervous ticks at the beginning?
Yeah, I had a thrower that did that, and she'd move her foot in
Yeah,
And they would throw you like totally off.
yeah, I don't like the tap, tap, tap move
Yeah.
on accident. There are certainly kids that they're, you know, yesterday I said the bounce, 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 backspin, breathe, free throw. I mean, if it works for them, do it. If it's getting in their way, reduce things in the back, you know, and we talked about it in Glide just now, and discus too. Like, if there's something funky in the, you know, what I would do with her is, and what I did with her, we spent 1 week where I just had her static start. So, like, we're just gonna wind it here, we're just gonna go. We're gonna get rid of some of the energy that she has at the beginning that then turns into this left shoulder and head going in early. And so that's just something I would address by maybe drilling something real specific.
It wasn't bad if she did it on her right foot, but she'd do it on her left foot.
Left foot as well.
And then that'd be her turn foot, and that'd always move her where she was in a certain.
Yeah, I would, tranquilizer gun and
Taser.
less caffeine at lunchtime the day you know, like it's all those things, right? But yeah, so you notice it, especially if it changes their entry, it's worth addressing.
Could her injury to her leg, I don't know how bad it was, could that be a problem because of her diving in?
Yeah, so she had discus and then shot the next day, and she wanted to scratch out of the shot. She ended up like in the medical tent after shot. So she was holding on to the last gasps of functionality, but she's also this kind of kid where it's like she wasn't going to not throw this day. And I'm glad she did. I'm glad she did, but I'm glad she threw and did. But she was pretty sore. She was pretty hurt. Here's another way to look at this. If you have a checklist like this, I don't really do this, but I thought just for a visual for you guys, here are things that I kind of identify that, you know, in the red, like these are pretty big problems. In the orange, I'm like, but I also think they're more derivative of what's happening here. And so I can't remember, I think if this is the same throw, or if this is her really big throw where I think she like. No, that's the same throw. But, you know, like her right foot pretty much stops turning, but it stops turning because there's so much momentum shifting to the left that it can't turn. She's not on it very much. So I don't think we can stop that right there, but we can take a look at that another way if we want to. Oh, this is the next one. Yeah, dreams, right? But I was just having a conversation with a really, really good thrower, and her dad is her coach, and she has a pretty kind of egregious like chest head into the middle of the throw, and she works at it constantly. And she looks really good. This just blows up out of her hand. Our winter sessions for Madison Throws Club are at UW-Madison, so we throw on the indoor football field, so we can see how far discs are going. And I said to her, I said to her dad on the session, I said, I would love to see you get her more stacked out of the back, because there's going to be a rainy knee, and that her stream angles on a wet circle are going to turn into very inconsistent throws or scratches. And I know it feels good for her. You know, she gets into this position where she's lunging into the middle. She gets out of that position, which I think is pretty hard for high school kids. And in the discus, I'd much rather stay much more upright than we need to in the shot, mostly because we're kind of trying to get across the ring. And then the throw is flatter. But, you know, it's things like that where once you get into a technical analysis and it's going far, you need to think about, one, I am constantly thinking about, well, what will make it go farther? You know, when I saw the 126, you could do that is so fantastic, we're at the top end. And, you know, to me, I think she went from first or second, I think she's fourth before this throw, and my cue was just compete, right? I'm not telling her some technical thing. We're not gonna fix the back corner. And after that, the juice of that PR, I think she actually tried to go faster on this throw. Like, let's go faster, go left So, you know, wasn't time to try to cue it, but it's like, do we have time to make some larger things? So as we prioritize stuff, I said this earlier, back, always first, if there's a big problem in the back, that's where I would start the next day. If it's something in the middle or the front and possibly caused by the back, address the back first. If you talked about earlier, you got a kid and that's just what they do, and we've been pounding away at it. Do you address something else to either give yourself a break or the kid a break from that cue? I know that there are college coaches where you could show up for practice, hear the same cue for a month, and we're not moving on until you fix it, because that's how it has to be. But in our time scale, if you can think longitudinally like that and the kid's on board, awesome. But, you know, let's be honest, most of the high school kids are like, I can't wait for that dual meet on Tuesday. And us as coaches are like, I don't care about the dual meet on Tuesday, I'm thinking about the state meet. And so how do you prioritize that based on what your kids need? Goes back to kind of where we started today. What's essential, if one of the issues is in balance, it's going to be hard to fix anything else. So I would try to address balance issues first. Stacking the left side, is their spine stacked? You know, is their head pulling them off balance? Are they shifting a lot? I would say that needs to be addressed, because if they're off balance, chances are the little fix you're working on at the finish isn't going to really have a big impact on helping them throw in a big way. In the discus especially, separation, but certainly there's separation as gliders and rotators in the shot. But separation in the discus is key. Keeping the implement on tension is probably the biggest thing young kids have a problem doing. And so that's a big lever. It's how many people have had the kid that went from like 100 to 120 as soon as they figured out I need to leave the discus alone a little bit and let the hips win the thing. That doesn't usually happen in the shot where you just see like a 5-foot improvement. It happens all the time in the discus when that light bulb of separation goes off in their head finally, instead of them trying to muscle everything with the discus. I always talk about the discus as like a wiffle ball. The more you try with your arm, usually the worse it gets. And you can teach a kid to be patient and keep